Well, hello there.
Hello.
This will be a part one to a two-part video discussion. I did it where it was all one and it was just too much. So we're gonna condense it down into two separate subjects. And this will also help build on other topics. That's why I'm doing it. Knowing and understanding your threats is very important. It helps generate proper responses, and you're not gonna be overreacting or underreacting. It's going to be an honest assessment of what's going on and how best to tackle specific threats. Most people think that threats will be precisely what they think they're going to be, not what they actually are. There's no shortage of individuals that are, oh, well, the zombie apocalypse, which is kind of dying out.
Rule number one for surviving Zombieland: cardio.
Or Red Dawn scenario or anything like that. Usually it's a diluted or not as attractive threat when compared to fantasy scenarios. And they'll start preparing for those specific attractive quote-unquote threats where they're objectively a good person and they're fighting a force that's come to invade them, that's going to force an evil ideology or some sort of thing onto the populace, and they get to be the hero. And by no means is that an endorsement of oppressive regimes throughout the world, but we have to be realistic with what's going on if you want to have a prepared, even, measured response to those items. These help mitigate, oh, that'll never happen, or you don't need this particular item, or some other FUD nonsense. It helps you prepare for the most likely threats from different organizations down to lone wolf active shooter attacks, or someone going crazy and running over people or something like that, as well as other anti-terrorism force protection concerns, which we are not going to get into at all. They're not applicable here for this exercise. Now, before we get started, I'm going to offer a disclaimer. This isn't for help me go down south and fight a government or any of that other stuff. This is just for a concerned citizen who's looking to defend themselves or their family and property should the need or situation arise. So just to be clear, I'm not advocating for nor endorsing any sort of anti-government actions or mentality or any of that stuff. All right, just to be clear, this is just a thought exercise and laying out how to do stuff for yourself. So with that out of the way, let's start working our way down. First, establish what you intend to protect. Your family.
There's always room for family.
Your home, yourself, your assets, all that stuff. Whether you rent, you have a little area, a cul-de-sac, or you live in a group of townhomes and everybody's pretty tight with each other, whatever it is. Or whether it's just you live by yourself, you're in a studio apartment, or you have your own home, whatever, and you're just there to protect yourself. Maybe you have some kitties.
These might be just cats to you, Ricky, but these are my fucking family. Show them a little respect. You tried growing up on your own, living in a fucking shed all by yourself, and nobody to fucking talk to and be nice to. That's the only thing I have that didn't judge me, call me a big googly-eyed bastard.
Once you've established what you're protecting, then establish how mobile it is. If you are one of these people that live in a van,
And I live in a van down by the river,
or you have an RV, this is a very easy answer for you. If the RV park is getting out of hand, then you just roll out of there. Super easy. But establish what is mobile and what isn't, what you can move and what ain't gonna move, and how moving changes your exposure to other threats, where you're moving to, and if you're planning on moving from that location, whether it's temporary or permanent. That's your first step. So for instance, my house is not moving, and all the shit that I put in my house ain't really mobile because I have to pack it into one vehicle. I can't drive all three of my vehicles simultaneously, so I have to select a vehicle, select what's coming with me and what's important, manage sustainability and defense, and where I'm gonna go, because living out of a Jeep Grand Cherokee isn't great. Secondly, Do an honest assessment of local environmental and structural hazards. How likely they are to get flooded in a storm, what storms you have there, what seasons are particularly dangerous, and are you at risk for fire or wildfires, etc. So if you live in an area with levees or you're at or below sea level, flooding is a massive concern. Just ask people in Houston anytime it rains too hard. Or if you live in a particularly dry tinderbox that the government's not taking care of, or if you live in an area that's particularly arid or desert-like and getting water is difficult during certain periods of time. It doesn't necessarily have to be an outside force that's going to take you out. It could be a category 3 or 4 hurricane, it could be a tornado, it could be massive brush fires, it could be forest fires. A whole myriad of things could take you out before anyone threatens your life on a personal level. Next, everyone's favorite topic. Who is a threat to you? The crazy guy down the street who threatens to shoot people, meth heads, homeless people that steal things, or homeless people on meth that are violent, wildlife, gangs, biker gangs, organized crime, or a Red Dawn scenario, or a little kitty. So what you want to do is you want to see what's in your area. By and large, all cities have areas that people of ill repute tend to flock. Not necessarily all bad people. Some people just have severe mental illness, or the properties aren't well maintained, so they're homeless colonies or whatever. I'm not saying just because someone lives there, they're a bad person, and that's something that we have to get out of, because it'll ultimately become a distraction for what we're trying to do here. So our purpose isn't to identify everything as a threat, because then you become the same sort of thing you're trying to combat in the first place, and you as an individual or even a family or squad of friends can't reasonably mitigate those threats because they're everywhere and everyone. So it starts becoming this schizophrenic exercise where everybody's out to get me and you can't possibly defend against that. So it's important to understand what's in your area. There are gangs, there are organized crime, and there's a whole infrastructure and command structure that goes with that you may not be able to combat. So you might have to say, hey, because these people operate there, we have to stay out of this area. There's only 3 of us, or there's only 1 of us, or there's only 10 of us. We can't go up against 100 people. Stuff like that. Then what they're armed with and likelihood of interaction, which is never 0, right? A lot of these gangs could end up in your area, or a lot of other things can happen where interactions are forced. They're chasing somebody that they're after and they chase them into your hood. There's a shootout, something like that. Half of the episodes of First 48, right? There's a lot of situations where you don't want to get involved with what's going on. You want to just stay out of the way or extricate yourself whenever possible. When I was in Fort Worth, there was a biker gang that got into a shootout with another biker gang at a large restaurant. I don't remember if it was like Twin Peaks or if it was some regular restaurant. I don't remember. But it was kind of crazy because it was during the day, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and something like that. I don't really remember all the details. It was years ago, but no one was really ready for it. It kind of just happened. And that wasn't their area. They went there to hang out and chill. They weren't there to cause trouble. So things happen, right? And you may think you'll never run into organized crime, and then down the street is a human smuggling operation that works for the cartel. You don't have the resources to fight the cartel, I promise. Or a cartel grow operation like in Northern California, something like that, where you think, oh no, this is redneck country. Surprise, it's not. The best thing to do is never assume, and what you do is you see who's in your area without going into the hood, without going into dangerous areas. You find the go, no-go criteria for wherever you're going. And I know, I know that sounds like wherever you go, there you are sort of talk, but you have to know what's going on around you. If you don't know what's going on around you, that will place you into bad situations. You don't look for trouble, and you can't claim ignorance for going into the wrong area and finding trouble because you didn't take time to do research. Now, for my area, it's pretty easy to figure out where not to go. And usually you can check with whatever city you're in where the high crime areas are and just avoid them. And sometimes, like I said in another video, going during a different time of day can drastically change the threat environment. But assessing whether you have someone crazy on your street to ignore and how to meet that threat is very important. And you can scale how you're going to carry, where you're going to go, how you're going to act, all that other stuff. And again, this is more of a thought exercise and tabletop than it is doing anything cool. But what it prevents is you getting caught unaware and getting into a bad situation where you have to force a self-defense situation, or you end up getting shot because you're wearing the wrong colors in the wrong neighborhood, or whatever. And this also translates into your kit. And what do I mean by kit? Your plate carriers, your helmets, your nods, all that cool Instagram shit that you want to have. Some guys buy threat-specific plates. Some guys always go level 4. I'm always a level 4 kind of guy, but that's because of the military, and you don't know who has what. There's more hunters than there are people into AR-15s. Hate to break it to everybody. There's more bolt actions out there that are bigger than 5.56. So if you're in Montana, or pretty much anywhere really, your biggest threat might be a 30-06 bolt action. So a 20 or 24-inch bolt action throwing 30-06 at you, and those threat-specific plates aren't going to stop it. Or you might live in a metro area, downtown, everybody has handguns, so your threat-specific plates are just fine. It all depends on what's going on around you, but the way you figure that out is by doing a threat assessment. Situational awareness is key and important, as well as doing any sort of homework at all on where not to go, who's in your area, what your assets are that you're trying to protect, and what's important to you. If you want to just go out and be a loot drop for somebody, do whatever. But a lot of guys are planning their life around force on force, or these guys with PSA 10.5s and red dots are going to run the streets, so I have to be ready to deal with 5.56 or 5.45 or 7.62 by 39 threats. And people with fun switches on their Glocks. So this kind of seems like a nebulous, hey, just do this and you'll be fine sort of thing. It's not necessarily designed that way, and it may not make sense to some people now, but it'll make sense as we progress forward on other topics, using this video as a starting point. But you have to understand what your threats are. And your threats aren't people you just don't like. You know, people who sleep with people you don't like, and that goes both ways, or all the ways it can go, whatever the fuck. People with different colored hair, people that dress different, people with different skin colors, whatever. That's not a threat assessment. That's personal bias or prejudice or whatever you want to say. A threat assessment is based on a realized, demonstrated threat. So it's not whatever you just feel like or whatever fantasy scenario it is. It's honest scenarios. Now, is a Red Dawn scenario possible? Sure. Is it a fraction of a percent? Yeah, pretty much. It'd take a lot to invade the US. But it could happen. We could get completely taken by surprise. Highly unlikely, but it could happen. So I'm not saying either that based on those threats not to train and not to prepare. If you have the most diverse and practiced skill sets, it will give you the ability to survive whatever you're getting into and whatever your threats are. It'll just increase your survivability. Force multipliers, which we'll get into, like night vision, body armor, helmets, suppressors, so on and so forth. Force multipliers, training, medical skills, the ability to survive in the wilderness, all that stuff contributes to your survivability. Knowing when to and when not to get into a fight is huge. That's probably your largest survival factor is, hey, I'm just not gonna get involved in that because there's too many unknowns and I have a low probability of survival. A lot of people wanna be the hero, that's fine. If you wanna go on that journey, go ahead. Kyle Rittenhouse already did that and you see what happened to him, both the good and the bad. If that's a road you wanna travel down, that's up to you. I'm not there to stop you. And by no means am I saying don't get training or civilians shouldn't do this, which will be another video here soon about civilian rifle employment. What's important is you do honest assessments with your capabilities, what you're trying to protect, how mobile it is, environmental factors, if bridges get knocked out, if your favorite fastest route gets knocked out, what are your options to increase your survivability and mitigate threats? And who's dangerous in that area to you, all right? A lot of important things go into a threat assessment, but doing one is very important and it helps you tailor your response appropriately. 99.999% of the time, a concealed carry firearm with low visibility and staying out of altercation is going to be everything you need, all right? Half the shootings that happen in the hood are either gang violence, drug violence, or targeted. Probably don't fit that criteria unless you do, all right? Then you already know what those threats are. By no means is this something that you wanna use. By no means is this video suggesting that you place yourself in these situations or go out of your way to find danger. It's the exact opposite. It's the best way to assess what's going on and help you make moves and supply yourself to stay out of those areas. Half the time, some of the best preparedness or security or whatever is when everyone in the neighborhood is like, I had no idea so-and-so blah, 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 right? If no one else around you knows, and you're a small operation, that is the best. You stay out of the way, nobody comes to bother you, and you're Gucci. But there are times where those options get removed off the table for you, like a Hurricane Katrina or riots or whatever. And doing threat assessments and having responses pre-planned so you can deal with those threats should they arise is what this is geared for. So make smart choices, do not go looking for trouble, and go get training, medical training, have medical gear, have a concealed carry weapon, and be ready to defend you and yours should violence come to find you or bad people come to find you. Don't go looking for it, but doing a threat assessment is a massive step in your personal security. Hopefully this video made sense, and I'm going to reference it as I go forward with some other topics down the line. If you have any questions, please put it down in the comments. As I said earlier, don't use this for bad things. I hope y'all are doing well out there. Thanks for watching. Take care out there.
There's always room for family.